Beautiful. So I want to welcome everyone to our wonderful book club with gorgeous Nicole Mathieson with The Beauty Load. Over to you, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for coming along, for showing interest in The Beauty Load. So I've got a little presentation here for us to take you through the book. Just as my phone call happens, yeah. I'm just sharing my screen here. I hope you can all see that. There we go. Awesome. All right. So I want to just take you through a little journey about the book and some of the main key points that come from it before we go to the Q&A. So yeah, this is The Beauty Load. And the tagline is how to feel enough in a world obsessed with beauty. So a bit about me. I'm a relationship-focused counsellor and a couple therapist based here in Brisbane. So yeah, I wrote the book, which can feel like a bit of a strange combination, right? A book about body image, but a focus on relationships and couple therapy. But what I've found is some of the themes that come up a lot in relationship therapy are things like insecurity, self-esteem issues, and of course, body image angst, which really play into relationship stuff. So I became really fascinated with these themes. So this is my book here, and in the book, I share my experiences, personal experiences of growing up, of failed dating, of finding love, of feeling awkward around sex, of having babies and having a changing body and accepting my aging body. So through all these different stages and phases, my relationship with my body, my confidence, my security, all kind of had different changes and transitions. But the book is divided into 3 sections. So section 1 is really focused on what is the beauty load, describing it, defining it. Section 2, what's it doing to us? And section 3, how do we get out from under the beauty load, the heavy load that we're carrying? So I've kind of divided this little chat up into those 3 sections as well. So section 1. Before we get to section 1, I wanted to just share with you 3 overlapping things that led me to writing this book. They kind of all happened, they were all kind of going on at the same time. And one of those things was my clients. I was at the time less relationship focused, more sort of helping women with anxiety and intimacy. And I just found woman after woman after woman was coming into my clinic space, and every single one of them had some kind of story of angst, of disconnect, of worry, like a load they were carrying about their relationship with their body. And at the same time, I had young kids, and I was thinking, oof, I know this angst myself. How do I raise kids and not have them feel it? Like, what is this all about? How do I avoid them feeling the angst that I've felt, that all of my clients feel? And simultaneously, I watched a documentary based in Cuba that really changed my thinking. So this documentary on Cuba was called The Sunny Side of Sex, and it was excellent. I don't know if anyone's seen it. She was exploring sexuality in different countries around the world, and she went to Cuba and she interviewed this bunch of women exiting a gym in this one section of the documentary. And these women were all shapes and sizes, all different colors, all different ages. And she asked them as a group, you know, are you sexy? Do you think you're sexy? And every single woman dropped into their body and started gyrating, and we're going, hell yeah, I'm sexy. And it was mind-blowing to me, because I knew that if I was asked that exiting a gym in my gym clothes, No matter what shape my body was in, if I was in fighting fit shape, I would still find fault with it. And my answer would not be, hell yeah, I'm sexy. And it really just lit up in me that so much of what I was feeling was cultural, was social, was conditioned into me with what I've been exposed to. And I'm not saying Cuba's perfect. I know they have problems, but in researching the book, I realized that they'd been under 30 years of communist rule, so they didn't actually have media ads, advertising, just telling them that they needed something else to be okay. So that led me to writing this book and to exploring those three things, led me to it. So let's answer this question, what is the beauty load? And I thought I would start by just actually using some of the words I've written down in my book. So here I say, the beauty load is an invisible load of tension, an almost constant undercurrent of worry about how we are perceived or sense of lack relating to how we look. It's a feeling that ebbs and flows through different phases and contexts of our lives, but in one way or another, always seems to be sitting on our shoulders, taking up precious space in our mind and in our life that would be best used for, well, literally anything else. And I go on to compare it to the mental load that we carry when, which concerns things that need to be done at work, with the kids, around the house. And the beauty load is another load. It burdens us with yet more unending things to do. But this time it's about our face, our hair, our clothes, our body, our beauty. So that is the definition of the beauty load. I'm just turning my phone off there. But I'm a visual person, so I like to explore this visually. Let's just imagine this is Sally. And Sally is a woman who lives in any Western country in the world. But in this case, she lives in Brisbane. And she has grown up with a lot of influences and input on her that she's taken in. And so some of those influences and inputs are here: patriarchy, consumerism, social media. Oops, I meant that to come a bit later. So all of these influences here: lack of sovereignty, sexual objectification, shaming, fat shaming, body shaming, consumerism, porn, expectations of beauty work, racial prejudice, social media, body shaming, ableism, thin privilege, and very importantly for this group here, youth obsession. So all of this is what I call the beauty load, a load that sits on our shoulders. And you can see Sally's really hunched over with all the weight of it. But actually, the beauty load and all of those influences are external to Sally. They're not inside her, they're outside her, they're in the world outside. But because of human nature, there are some innate, natural, healthy human responses to living in a society, to living in a world, such as our desire to fit in. So as social creatures that have evolved, from our ancestors who lived in clans on the savannas of Africa and elsewhere, fitting in really mattered, right? It was a survival fear or need that we fit in with the clan. So fitting in still matters to this day. Comparison is a tool that we use for ourselves and for other people within our clan and our tribe, our community, to make sure that we do fit in. And self-criticism is another tool that we use to make sure that we stay safe. And actually, there are developmental stages, especially young kids, where it's safer for us to be self-critical than to be critical of our primary caregivers. Because what are we going to do if we're like, they're the problem? we're little, we can't do much. So self-criticism is a natural human response. And so with the weight of the beauty load and all of these inputs, and then the human responses, what happens is we internalize the shame and angst of the beauty load. It becomes an internal thing. And in my book, I make a point that, you know, some people don't necessarily vibe with, but I really think that if you've grown up in a Western, consumerist, capitalist, patriarchal place like Australia, that you're going to feel it. You're going to feel the beauty load. So men feel it. Men feel it too, but it is different, you know, and I just want to quickly list some of the reasons it's different for men. Is that well, men aren't expected to cover up their face with makeup to be socially acceptable. Women have had their bodies objectified for the male gaze in all kinds of film and media. Girls are conditioned from a very young age, in fact, from babies, to value their prettiness. We're growing up in a patriarchy where men get to have their ideas counted and creations taken into consideration, whereas for many thousands of years, women didn't even have personal sovereignty or ownership, let alone ideas and input listened to. And girls are socialized to be kind and inoffensive, and I feel like being pretty was a way to be inoffensive, just like being nice. So men feel it too, sure. But also the beauty load is intersectional, meaning that it depends on other factors that are also interfaced with your, you know, perceived beauty, such as race, color, ability, size, financial privilege, and very importantly, age. And I also make the point in the book that, you know, I think it's really easy to sort of go, oh, well, that woman over there, she's so beautiful. She won't feel a struggle. She won't feel a challenge. She won't feel the weight of the beauty load because she is higher up on the hierarchy of, you know, of the ideal beauty. But I actually believe from doing the research in the book that everybody feels it, even the beautiful ones, and the beautiful ones feel the pressure to reach that level, to not disappoint people. Like there's a whole swirl of stress that goes with that as well. So it's not like it misses any of us. So what I'm trying to say is that in this culture, feeling angst is inevitable. And I feel like that is one of the really key points. If you only got one thing from my book, I would be happy if it was that, because I feel like this takes a bit of pressure off us. It's not personal. It's not like you have a particular flaw that makes you feel anxious about this. It is inevitable. You have been conditioned, just like Pavlov's dog. It is as inevitable as drooling when a bell rings, if you've been conditioned that way, that we would feel anxious about the way we look in this culture. And I have a whole chapter dedicated to the people who are like, sure, I feel the beauty load. I'm not sure it affects me. And it's a have you ever chapter. So here's just a couple of these questions to ask you. Have you ever been obsessed with your reflection? And if so, then maybe you have experienced the weight and heaviness of the beauty load. Maybe it has been that you've wanted to avoid the mirror entirely, or maybe you've wanted to check and make sure that everything's okay. Either way, the beauty load. Have you ever felt like you have nothing to wear? It's the beauty load. Have you ever felt like you couldn't be attractive or find love because of the way you looked? And this was my narrative as a young person. This was the story I told myself based on the fact that I didn't feel like my breasts were big enough. And it's amazing how much that story created its own trajectory. Have you ever hated certain body parts? It's the beauty load. And this one actually makes me the saddest. Have you ever avoided activities because of the way you looked? You know, and studies show that girls as young as 7 are avoiding activities because of the way they looked. And not just the obvious activities like partaking in swimming at school or going to the beach, but also putting their hand up in class because they don't want to be looked at and seen because of the way they look. And that is heartbreaking. So the next section of my book, we've skipped all through section 1 here, but the question really is, what is the beauty load doing to us? And I've found there are 3 main effects that the beauty load is having. And the first is that it depletes us. It depletes us of time. And studies have shown that the average woman spends about 355 hours on beauty and the work of beauty. And our men, probably a couple of hours, not as much time that they get to spend doing other things. Money, it depletes us of money. $621 billion on women's fashion and beauty in 1 year. And there's a massive beauty gender gap when it comes to the finances. So women are spending a whole lot more money than men. And energy. I think that this is often an under scrutinized area that we are depleted in. The energy that is taken up with thinking about it, with worrying about it, with feeling insecure and feeling vigilant and looking out for things, feeling not good enough. And Naomi Wolf, I quote her in my book, feels like it is a tactic of the patriarchy to deplete us of energy so that we can't be as powerful. But I think that the beauty load also depletes us of power. You know, power, if we were focused on something else, focused on changing the world, for example, or even just not wearing stilettos and tight skirts and having fingernails where we can't even tippy tap on our typewriter. Like, this is power. So it depletes us. The second way that the beauty load affects us is it makes us insecure. So yeah, insecurity is probably one of the biggest, right? It just makes us wobbly and doubt ourselves and think negative thoughts about ourselves. And, you know, this insecurity, I see it as parts of us that are trying to protect us, right? They're trying to protect us from being shamed or pulled down or told that we're not as good as we think we are or rejected or whatever it is. But our insecurity can sometimes take over our lives and stop us from doing stuff. But a big thing that the beauty load makes us feel is shame. And I think that we are shamed in so many ways around our looks and our beauty in ways that men just don't seem to be. And I quote in the book Karl Stefanovic's experiment, right, where he actually, I think I might have taken it out because it had copyright, but it's a great example. Karl Stefanovic wore the same suit for a whole year on the morning show. Same tie, same shirt, And nobody noticed, nobody wrote in, nobody complained. Meanwhile, his co-host Lisa Wilkinson was getting all kinds of letters about her outfits that changed every day, shamed for the choices she was making on the show. But I think, we get shamed in our family. Our families often have little ways of shaming. Should you really eat that? Or do you think that skirt's a bit too short? Or whatever it is. We get shamed in public. We get shamed in the media. We get shamed for showing too much, for all the different things, for our size. Women can be really harsh on other women. We can be really, really harsh on ourselves, and we can be harsh on people who we think have gone too big, and we pull them down with the tall poppy syndrome. And I think as well, we can feel shame for actually caring about the way we look. Like it's shameful to nearly feel the beauty load, to worry about it. It's like, I'm a feminist. I'm a strong woman. I'm this old. Shouldn't I have been over this by now? But another way that our insecurity can affect us is body dysmorphia. And I think that we think of body dysmorphia as, the extreme end of the spectrum, which is things like anorexia, where we're looking in the mirror and we're seeing someone who's fat when body is not fat. But actually, I think body dysmorphia is actually, the whole spectrum. It's smaller little things. It's looking at ourselves through really skeptical, negative eyes. Whereas if we looked at our friends, we are much more generous and accepting than we are of ourselves. So here's just a few comments from people in my network that are sprinkled throughout my book, just to show the effect that the beauty load has on women. So this one, I'm not going to date anymore. Nobody will find me attractive anyway, so why should I bother? I never put my hand up to speak in meetings, as I don't want everyone to look at me and see how horrible I look. So that really correlates with the statistics I was talking about with the 7-year-olds not wanting to put up their hand. And this one, I never let anyone, not even my husband, see me naked. The lights are off and I'm under the covers before my clothes come off. So these are comments that my clients or people in my network have said to me about how the beauty load is affecting them. But the third area that fascinates me as a relationship-focused counsellor is in relationships. So the beauty load really affects us in relationships, and it affects us through all stages, like from dating, but also, once we're in long-term relationships, it can still have an effect. And it affects us in ways like compensation, like feeling like we have to make more effort over here because we haven't quite got the body we want to feel secure and safe in relationship. Or we might actually distance. We might play little games like with our protective parts, distancing to sort of save ourselves or protect our hearts. We might project. And I wrote in one of the chapters in the book is about a time when I was projecting my insecurity onto my husband, suggesting that he was dissatisfied with me because of my small breasts. And it was absolutely nothing to do with his feelings. He hadn't said anything of the sort. It was all my insecurity that I was just projecting on him in anger and rage. But I think another massive area that the beauty load affects our relationships is in the realm of the bedroom, in sex, sexual awkwardness, sexual insecurity. Like that last comment of the lights are off, I don't want my husband to see my body. There's just the thought of having someone touch you on the parts of your body that you are feeling insecure about, that can be more a turn off than a turn on, even if it's an erogenous zone. It can be all sorts of beliefs that we have about sex and beauty, like needing to be beautiful, like a porn star. You know, you can even think about how porn has, you know, changed the way people want to look, how they prune and shave their pubes and all sorts of stuff. But the beauty load really has an effect. And I think that what can happen is sex can become really performative. We can perform sex when we're not comfortable. And that's a real shame, a real loss. So section 3 of my book, how do we get out from under the load? So the load sucks. We don't want it. But how do we get out from under it? So one of the things that I talk about is finding purpose. Of course, if we are lit up and we have so much purpose and we're on a mission and we're going to change the world and we have the people around us that are really on that mission too, you know, I think that things like worrying about our body and how it looks can tend to fall away. And then if we start focusing on health and strength and how it feels to be alive in our body and having the experience of being inside rather than external, looking at ourselves as though from external judgmental eyes, that can really make a difference as well. And I think that we absolutely must get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because the beauty load, our insecure parts are going to pop up. They're going to start chatting to us. They're going to get noisy. Our anxiety is going to get noisy. That is inevitable. Living in this culture where so much emphasis is on looks, they're going to pop up. We're going to get triggered. That's not going away, no matter how much work we do. Even as the author of this book, these moments happen. And the discomfort feels awful. But if we know that that's just part of the course, it's going to pop up occasionally. It's nothing to get too alarmed about. It's conditioned into me. It's not my fault. It's the culture. I can get through the discomfort. But most importantly, I want to talk about this, that what we have endured is hard. The first step, like I was saying, if this is the only thing you got from this book, is realizing that what we have endured with all of that conditioning and all of that input and all of that messaging, it's hard. So here's Sally. She's hunched over all of those inputs and more. That is the beauty load. It's a lot. And when things get hard, we get kind. We need to get really kind to ourselves. And we need to be really compassionate and understanding of the angst that we feel about our bodies. So there are 2 ways internally that this could go. So this is the self-critical way. Are you ready? Here's Sally. She has a thought. I don't like the way I look. It's a beauty wobble, body image wobble. I don't like the way I look. So what happens from there is she's like, a part of me is anxious and I feel stupid for worrying about this. I feel stupid for worrying about my looks. Why do I feel anxious? What's wrong with me? And then she copes with the worry by fixing herself on the external, on the outside. So maybe she goes and gets new hair, or I was going to say a body wave. That's so 1980s of me. She goes and gets a tan, or she goes and gets her nails done, or she goes and gets a new outfit, or she gets a boob job. But the worried part of her finds more and more things to worry about. And then she keeps fixing things, but what she feels is that she must really be inadequate. She must really not be enough, not be good enough, be really shit. And around we go again. She doesn't like the way she looks. She's anxious. She feels stupid. She has to keep coping in the same way. So that's a self-critical way. But there's another way. There's the self-compassionate way of dealing with this internally. So at the same start, she has a beauty wobble. She doesn't like the way she looks. She says, a part of me is anxious. And then she realizes that this part of her is worried about her. And she goes, that makes sense, because she thinks, and that's what the asterisk there is for, right? She thinks about the beauty load. She thinks about all of the conditioning, and she thinks about the culture around her and all the messaging and all that she's been exposed to. It's like 10,000 images a day that she's been exposed to her entire life. And she goes, it makes sense that there's a part of me that's worried about the way I look in this culture. Of course it's going to be worried. And she goes, this part cares about me because I'm worthy of caring about. And then she goes, thank you to this part that's worried. Thank you to my worried part. And then she asks it, how can I support you? How can I support this worried part of me that's anxious in this world of obsessed with beauty? How can I support it? What's the best way? And then she feels good about herself. She's been there for herself. She's really shown up. She's present. She's been there with self-love, self-care. And she's not stuck in this endless loop. So my question for you as I finish my presentation here is, how can you support the part of you that worries about the beauty load? And that's it. So I would love questions if you have any. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Nicole. That's so beautiful. I don't know if I've got a question. There's a lot, but I just wanted to just say the thing that jumped out of me, just gave me goosebumps, was when things get hard, we get kind. I just love that.
Our motto, our new motto, right? When things get hard, we get kind. Yeah. Yeah, because we don't, right? Because we don't. When things get hard, we often get self-critical. We get hard on ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just clarify the question you wanted to ask again, and I'll go around and see if we can get anyone to ask. So tell me the question.
Well, the question, how can you support the part of you that's worried about the beauty load?
Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat as well, because some people may not want to talk. So if you don't want to talk, unmute yourself, Dahlia, and go for it. But if you don't want to talk or appear on camera, you just want to put your question in chat, please do. So how can you support yourself?
How can you support the part of you that worries about the beauty load or that feels anxious about the image?
I just give it extra love. I sort of load it up because I feel that I'm worthy of it, and I should give myself as much love, maybe more than I give others, or the same way.
Love it. That's beautiful. I love hearing that.
You're an exceptional woman, Dahlia. So we love that.
Absolutely. That's what we need. More love.
Right. Who wants to talk? Holly?
Yeah, I'll have a go. So I guess who are we trying to be beautiful for is the question, firstly. And to that, I feel there is a sense of inner pride and inner in a duty to show up and make an effort and be the best that you can be. And and obviously grooming and presenting your best self is part of that. For myself, it's not in an effort to catch a man. That's me. I have many other priorities in my life that don't revolve around having a man in my house or in my bed or in my sphere. And I get far more joy from, accomplishing, challenges, getting out of my comfort zone and developing that mental strength and physical strength. My physical well-being is not at its peak, but I do know that there over the course of the last few years, there's been a lot of times where I've really been able to show myself, wow, look what I can do. And if that requires looking like a truck driver while I'm doing it, so be it. I'm oblivious of how I look when I'm in that mode of just utter accomplishment. But on a day-to-day basis, I do feel a duty to groom and try to, present well, just as part of self-care. So
look, there's no problem with that at all. And I think that some people have thought maybe that my message is don't put any energy into grooming, right? But not at all. I think that it's actually an innate part of femininity and maybe being a human actually is to want to enjoy that. I enjoy it. I enjoy dressing up and putting on clothes every day. Love it. I love it. But
expressing yourself.
It's what I'm interested in is the internal feeling about it, right? Or the inner angst. And if it is happening and creating inner angst, then it's a problem. If we can enjoy it and if we can find it fun and creative or neutral even is fine. The problem is the angst. And I think it's a bit like drinking, is a good example. At one end of the spectrum is alcoholism. That's a problem. But 1 or 2 glasses every so often is, or whatever, it's maybe not the best analogy, but you know what I mean? Like, it depends on how much it's having a detrimental effect on you internally. And my issue with the beauty load is the angst that closes women down because they feel so insecure that they don't want to be out there in the world. It's so sad.
Very, very sad. And I've learned over the years that self-esteem comes from knowing how to do things rather than what you look like.
Totally. And I think
that's beautiful.
There's a sort of balancing as we get older, right? I think it's a really interesting thing, like to be here in this group of, mature women over 50s, because part of us cares a lot less, right? As you get older, you've got so many other things going on that you know yourself better, that you know who you are, that you're much more solid as a human. But at the same time, all the markers of beauty that we've been told matter are leaving us.
So don't get me wrong, I hate my boobs and I'm well aware that my body is saggy and that obviously gravity takes hold, but again, coming back to where I get my self-worth, luckily, as I said, I do get a lot of self-esteem from challenging myself and achieving challenges.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Thanks, Holly. Let's get a few more voices in before we finish, okay? Let's go. Michelle, did you want to join in?
Thank you. Yeah.
And then we'll come to you afterwards, Sarah. I've got you down, Sarah.
Thanks, Nicole. I really I really enjoyed that, and I love the the load, the beauty load. And And, you know, I've just sort of been reflecting as, you know, as a young woman a long time ago, how I felt incredibly pressured, you know, to look a certain way, and I placed a great deal of emphasis on the way that I looked and the way that I moved in the world. And I think the thing that's come up for me was that also the uneasiness that gave me, because I could never kind of achieve what I thought was, you know, perfect. But also, you know, that thing when you're walking in the street and there's the attention of, you know, the male gaze, and which I wasn't, yes, I was aware of, but it's been a really interesting experience no longer having that.
Totally.
And for me, it's been an incredible freedom. And I guess that's what I was thinking about, because I didn't realize what a burden that was. You know, it's like that constant thing. And I don't have that anymore. And, you know, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Holly, I think it is. I haven't got my glasses on. You know, my body is not what it was. And sometimes that really freaks me out. But I also love being strong. And I get a lot from that, just that physical strength, as opposed to, you know, trying to achieve the impossible. So, you know, I guess the long and short of it is I'm a hell of a lot more comfortable than I've ever been, even with all my insecurities around my, you know, ever collapsing body,
Yes.
the wobbly bits. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah. It comes at the same time as caring less and enjoying being strong and capable and who we are. Yeah, I hear you. Thanks, Michelle.
Beautiful. Great. So Sarah, you wanted to come in, so over to you, Sarah. So you just in town.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks. I really enjoyed that.
You?
And there was something you really, yeah. I thought it was really interesting where you separated performing from kind of looking inwards and thinking about the way in which I guess the sort of self-consciousness around like one's own appearance then turns you into this sort of spiraling anxious creature. And like because I think about the times when like I think about COVID and the sort of like the way in which you would kind of, you know, like from the waist down be in whatever land, like tracksuits or underpants, whatever. And then the upper sort of half would be, I don't know, filtered and groomed and whatnot. And I really, so for me, that was, I really appreciated what you were saying about performing. And I think about the times when I'm like, even if I'm like, I think when I'm doing things that I'm most happy doing, like for me, even if it involves an element of public appearance, I tend, it's sort of like feeling enriched internally makes me not want to, or not really care so much about having to go outside with my makeup on. Yeah. So it was, and I wondered, like, do you have in your research, for this, were you like, did you come across the extent to which like this is a gendered thing?
Yes, I mean, I think that it's getting harder for men now because they're becoming more targeted in the media for marketed at the products and all sorts of things. And I actually spoke to an anthropologist who studies body image, and but for men it's a totally different thing. It's about being strong, muscly, big, about being big, whereas for women it's about being small. So yes, very different. It seems to be a different beast to me. I feel like they're nearly two different conversations, but definitely it's felt. And, I think what Holly was kind of saying, that it's nice to be socially acceptable. I don't know if these are your words, Holly, but it's nice to put in a degree of effort and to feel groomed. And I think, men feel that, and socially there's expectations of certain looks for certain contexts, just like there are for women. But, I think that the difference really is that our value, our self-worth seems to be pinned to our looks.
Yeah.
Whereas for men, their value is elsewhere because they've been conquering nations and building ships and doing all these other things for thousands of years. It's not where their value lies.
Thank you. Great. So we've got about another 5 minutes of questions before we start to wrap up. We would like to go. What about you, Monique? Because you read it quite a while ago. You had lots of time to reflect. No
Hi,
pressure.
everybody. Yeah,
Hello,
a long time
Monique.
ago. Hello. This was a good reminder. I don't know. I find I'm just in that curious. So I was kind of seeing somebody, not really dating, but just getting to know someone for about 5-6 months. And that's kind of ended up getting back with his ex. So I'm back being single, or, who knows, he might not like his ex, who knows, but I'm in that curious phase where I feel that I do have to look after myself, and I do have to be groomed. When I hear other talk who have got husbands they've had for 20 years and 16-year-old kids, and they're like, I don't worry about it anymore. So I find I would like to get out of that phase, but so there's no real point to what I'm saying. I suppose that's just where
But I think dating is the epitome of where it hits us, right?
Yeah.
Especially online. It's like you're swiping in relation to an image. It's all about looks. It's hard to separate. It's a really, it's a really hard time for body
So
image.
I'm trying to keep it into a positive where it's like, well, I'm looking after myself. I'm keeping trim, so I don't have any excuses to let it all go, so to speak. So I'm just trying to keep it in a positive mindset. But I hear people talking about being liberated, and I am liberated, but it is I'm aware that I'm in a different phase than other people.
Yeah.
Who are you doing it for? That's the key.
Me, I want a partner, and I'm doing it for myself as well. I'm doing it, I'm keeping it, but I'm using it. It's like I'm using it in a positive way, but it's just where my head is at compared to have been, with someone for the last 20 years. So yeah.
So I want to point you towards the chapter in my book called Attraction is More Than Beauty. And attraction is often about values, common interests, family culture, sexual compatibility, sexual chemistry, communication styles, ways of dealing with conflict, attachment styles, love languages, dreams for the future, endorphins, genetic diversity, health and reproductive ability, sexual polarity. There's so many other things that attraction is. So I just want to remind you of that, because I think that If you just remember it's just a little piece of the pie rather than the entire pie, that's at least a little bit easier.
Very true.
Yeah. But I want to read. Can I read just a tiny bit of the very end of my book, Faith?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So I don't know the words or the angle that will help minimize the beauty load for you. All I know is that I wish you didn't feel it. I wish that you felt enough, or even better, I wish you felt truly beautiful. But I know it is hard. Your struggles are and have been very real. It has been a tough road. The pressure is real. The pressure is not even a personal buy-in. It is way bigger than you. It is a huge deal, as massive as the culture itself. Your discomfort makes sense. I get it. Until we can acknowledge that this load we feel is the culture and not about us personally, until we can forgive ourselves for how we are, how we work around our discomfort, how we react in defensiveness, how we indulge in the quick fixes and judgments, and do so in a loving way, nothing is going to change. We are messy humans in a toxic world, doing our best, and it's okay.
Very nice.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Wow, I got so much out of that. Really, really, I didn't expect to have as many aha moments as I did reading this book, because I was saying to Nicole before we jumped on, I wasn't the sort of person that thought that the beauty load was something that impacted me so much, even though I had a life in fashion and you know, as a model. But for me, it's been in midlife, you know, when I turned 48 and all the bits started to get wobbly. That's when it started to become an issue. And you know, the chapter on weight was one that I really, really resonated with. And it's, you know, yeah. And for me, I really get that I had the privilege because I didn't have to worry about it for a long time. So now it's kind of interesting to go, that's what that feels like. So, and I loved what someone said about being strong, because I've had to really turn it around from it just being me, the skinny person, to me having a really strong, fit body, because this is definitely the strongest and the fittest I've ever been. So it's just coming to terms with that. So thank you so much, Nicole, for your, you know,
Thank you
really
so
strong,
much.
powerful words. So I'm just going to, do you want to say a final word before we just close off? I mean, you said some, but do you want to say anything else?
I would like to just say thank you so much for being here and for your awesome questions. And I really appreciate this opportunity, Faith. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, an absolute
It's been fun.
pleasure. Thank you for being here. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.